Sony announced two new cameras, which are basically identical with the exception of the sensor, the A7CR and the A7C2. Other than that, these cameras are quite literally the same, minus some software limitations when you're shooting 60 FPS video. Personally, my decision came from a photography-first perspective. I don't plan on shooting any video with the A7CR, so I don't really care about the video specs, because to put it short, both cameras offer amazing video quality. The short answer to why I chose the A7CR over the A7C2 comes down to the fact that I already have the A7 IV, so why would I buy the A7C2 when I could get the A7CR, which offers a lot more? The A7C2 has 33 megapixels while the A7CR has 61, the same as the A7R5, which I do not have. But in reality, you do not need 61 megapixels most of the time. I could place images on screen shot on both cameras side by side and you would not be able to tell the difference. So are you basically paying an extra $800 for nothing? Not exactly, but depending on your wants and needs, then maybe. A 61 megapixel sensor really comes in handy when you're cropping your image. Before I purchased the original A7C, I shot on the Sony A7R II, which had about 42 megapixels. After shooting photos that were 42 megapixels for so long, switching to 24 was a lot to get used to. I definitely took that 42 megapixel sensor for granted, but over time I did get used to the 24 megapixels. I did have to change up my shooting style a little bit because I could not shoot with a crop in mind. But that never made me stop missing a higher megapixel sensor. The true selling point of this camera for me was when I realized that with a 61 megapixel sensor, you can still shoot in APS-C mode at 26 megapixels. That is still more than the original A7C. As someone who doesn't really like to use zoom lenses, you're effectively doubling the use of any prime lens. So I can slap on a 24mm lens and put it in crop mode and have effectively a 35mm lens and still have 26 megapixels. You will lose out on some bokeh if you're shooting portraits, but I think that's a small price to pay, when otherwise you would have to pay hundreds of dollars for a similar size 35mm 2.8 lens. Now going back to the full frame 61 megapixel sensor. People will argue that you will need more hard drive space because 61 megapixel RAW files are massive. While that is true, this camera offers multiple different types of RAW files. The uncompressed RAW file is about 120 megabytes each, so that does add up quickly. I did not bring hiking shoes with me, so I'm probably gonna regret this. But Sony offers a lossless compressed RAW file, where you're not sacrificing any dynamic range, but it compresses the RAW file down to about 72 megabytes. But when you import it into Lightroom, it decompresses the RAW file and all of that information in the shadows and highlights is saved. When you are working with compressed files, it does require a bit more processing power, but even my base model 2021 iMac has no problem editing the A7CR files as long as I'm using an SSD. So there are 3 different types of lossless compressed RAW files, large being 61 megapixels, medium being 26 megapixels, and small being about 15 megapixels. So in a scenario where I'm shooting an event and I'm taking hundreds of photos an hour, I'm choosing medium because I know the photos are more than enough resolution, and it saves a ton of hard drive space. The other benefit is that while 61 megapixel sensors are known for having less dynamic range, when you're shooting in medium or small, it saves more dynamic range, similar to how a 33 or 24 megapixel sensor would. So you really get the best of both worlds out of this camera. But with that said, it's up to you to decide if that's worth an extra $800. But I would also like to add that the A7CR does include the grip extension, where if you buy the A7C II, you will have to buy this separately, and it is $160. So in a way, you could look at it as if you're only paying an extra $640 for the A7CR. I may actually make a video talking about whether I think this grip is actually worth $160, so keep an eye out for that soon. And that is why I chose the A7CR over the A7C II. I hope this video could provide some clarity if you're having trouble deciding between these 2 cameras. If you have any questions about them regarding something maybe I did not cover, please leave a comment and I will help you out the best that I can. In the end, I'm happy with the decision that I made. So if you enjoyed this video, please like the video and subscribe to help support me so I can continue growing and reaching a larger audience. And I hope I could inspire you guys to get out, take more photos, go out and shoot.